The sea breeze rustled the white canopy draped right on the shore. 300 guests, frozen on gilded chairs, were watching the altar where Ethan stood under the carved arch adorned with orchids and hydrangeas. His hands trembled slightly, and tears rolled down his face. He saw her, Claire, even before she reached the middle of the aisle. They were a living legend, the epitome of a relationship. Everyone knew Ethan and Claire were forever. Their love story had grown into a myth. The very first meeting with her father, a retired colonel with an icy gaze, ended with Ethan telling a joke about Marines over dinner, and the stern man laughed so hard he choked on his steak and gasped, clutching his glass of water. Claire's friends, who for years had only heard nods from her father, were in shock. Ethan founded the Day of the Unknown Flower. Once a month, without any occasion, he appeared at her doorstep with a bouquet that couldn't be found in the local florist. Once a month, a new country. Dutch spray roses, emerald proteas from Africa, fragile edelweises flown in from Switzerland. Claire's girlfriends grumbled to their boyfriends. Why can't you be like Ethan? He arranged flash mobs for her birthday, found and mastered the yellowed cookbook of her late grandmother to cook braised stew by her signature recipe. With him, every day Claire felt like it was her birthday. Then life threw them not a romantic plot, but a trial. Claire's mother was diagnosed with lupus. Ethan didn't hesitate. He switched to night shifts at his auditing firm so his days would be free. He became Mrs. Patterson's personal driver for all her procedures, chemotherapy, and doctor visits. When the Patterson family's funds ran out, having exhausted their insurance limit, Ethan sold his Harley. Not just a motorcycle, but the machine he had been building for 10 years with his father, a vintage model where every screw had been polished and put in place by him. He sold it to cover the bills, not letting Claire's family fall into debt. While their friends complained about monthly visits to Claire's parents as a heavy burden, Ethan was like family in the Patterson household. He helped Mrs. Patterson in the kitchen, fixed the leaking roof with her husband, and patiently taught her younger teenage brother to drive the old Honda in the empty supermarket parking lot. In the 3rd year of their relationship, he proposed, in her favorite Italian restaurant, surrounded by the whole family. He got down on one knee and offered her a ring, not a new one, but the very one. Her grandmother's, which he secretly took to a jeweler and restored for months using old photos, returning it to its original shine. He said she saved him from becoming a lonely workaholic who didn't know why he woke up every morning. The entire restaurant applauded. Claire cried so much she could only nod, squeezing his hand. The wedding preparations were madness. Ethan took on everything that stressed Claire out. He negotiated with contractors, spent hours on seating arrangements, settled scandals with her eccentric aunt, who demanded a vegan menu for all 300 guests. And then the day came. The perfect day on the perfect beach. Claire, in a dress in which she looked like a vision, walked to him along the sandy path to the sounds of a cello. Her father, that same impenetrable colonel, couldn't hold back tears, and Ethan was already crying under the arch, looking at her. Ethan's friend, a priest, conducted the ceremony. Traditional words, Bible readings, vows, Claire said her. I do in a quiet but confident voice, and a sigh of tenderness rolled through the rows of guests. Then it was his turn. Ethan, do you take Claire to be your lawful wedded wife? The priest's voice sounded clear and solemn. The beach froze. A silence settled in which only the whisper of the waves was heard. Everyone expected his loud, joyful, unconditional yes. Ethan looked at Claire. Time seemed to stop. His gaze was not tender, but studying, piercing. He took a deep breath and exhaled words that hung in the air, cold and sharp like shards of glass. 2 hours ago, I would have lifted you up in my arms and shouted yes across this entire beach. But now, you disgust me, and I don't want to see you for the rest of my life. He turned around. His patent leather shoes clicked dully on the wooden decking. He walked away from the altar, from her, from their shared life, without looking back. Claire's face twisted in confusion, which was replaced in 2 seconds by a primal horror. Her legs buckled, and the heavy wedding dress fell like a cloud on the sand. The priest froze with his mouth open. Ethan's mother screamed and ran after her son. The bridesmaids rushed to Claire, trying to bring her to her senses. The perfect picture exploded. Silence was replaced by chaos, screams, shouts, questions with no answers. Ethan didn't look back. He reached the parking lot, got into a taxi that, it turned out, had been waiting for him by prior order, and left. The taxi taking Ethan away from the beach smelled of disinfectant and someone else's perfume. He stared at the fogged-up window, not seeing the streets flashing by. In his ears roared not the sound of the ocean, but the deafening silence that had descended on the beach after his words. He clenched his fists, feeling the tremble in his body finally begin to subside. In the pocket of his jacket lay a folded sheet of paper. That letter. He ran his fingers over it, as if checking if it was real. It was real. And hell was real too. Back on the beach, chaos reigned. The guests, who had sparkled with anticipation only moments earlier, were now clustered in confused little groups. Some tried to call Ethan, others tried to comprehend what had happened. Whispering gave way to outraged exclamations. How could he? He's lost his mind. Poor Claire. Claire herself, her white dress now stained with sand, was nearly carried to the limousine by her friends and mother. She wasn't crying. She looked like a lifeless doll, her wide open eyes staring into nothing. He said, disgust. It was the only thing she could whisper before her body was racked with silent sobs. They took her to the nearest hospital, where the doctors, clicking their tongues, gave her a sedative. Her brother Zach, fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white, was pacing the parking lot. He was calling every nearby hospital and police station, his voice shaking with fury and helplessness. He's having a breakdown. He nearly shouted into the phone. You have to find him. He could be a danger to himself. Meanwhile, Ethan's best friend, Tony, stood in that same spot under the arch where just an hour ago the groom should have been. He didn't believe in a nervous breakdown. Ethan was the most mentally stable person he knew. Something was wrong here. He pulled out his phone and dialed Ethan's number again. For the 5th, 10th, 20th time. No answer. He went to Ethan's apartment. It was empty. On the living room table, next to a half-finished glass of water, lay a printed-out wedding plan. Tony noticed strange notes on it, unrelated to the wedding. Hotmail, login, password to old email, Jessica. Tony sat at Ethan's computer. His hands were shaking. He found the saved password in the browser and logged into the old email account. His heart pounded as he scrolled past spam and old newsletters, and then he saw it. Subject line, you are a monster, from Jessica Carter. He printed it out. The paper was still warm from the printer, and as he read, the world around him slowly collapsed like a house of cards. Our daughter, Mia, she's 12 now. 2 years ago she found you. Came to your house. Your fiancée. Claire opened the door. Tony read, and each word cut into him like a blade. Claire told her that you knew about her and called her your greatest shame, that you never wanted kids, that you'd rather die than hear her call you dad. The lines blurred before his eyes. He read them again, trying to process Claire. The same Claire who had always seemed the embodiment of kindness, who had taken care of his sick mother, who smiled in all the photos with him and Ethan. She had stood at the door of their shared home and coldly, methodically destroyed a 10-year-old child. 6 months later, Mia tried to take her own life. She left you a note. I'm sorry I exist. Claire intercepted that too. Tony leaned back in the chair, feeling sick to his stomach. He imagined that little girl, small, scared, riding 3 buses with a cherished photo of her father, and meeting at the door not him, but a wall of ice and hatred. He pictured her writing that note, and Claire reading it, and throwing it in the trash. At that moment his phone vibrated. The screen showed an unknown number. Tony swallowed the lump in his throat and answered. Tony, it was Ethan's voice. Far and flat, lifeless, like scorched earth. Did you read it? Yes, Tony's voice broke into a whisper. I read it. She destroyed my child, Tony. Ethan's voice cracked, and for the first time raw, uncontrollable pain burst through. She looked her in the eyes and told her she was a mistake, that I would never want her. I just gave her the same thing in return. Public humiliation. The complete destruction of her perfect world. Exactly what she did to Mia. Tony said nothing. He understood. He understood the rage, the pain, the despair. But the thought that Ethan, always so kind, so gentle, had been capable of such a cruel revenge terrified him to his core. Where are you right now? He finally asked. It doesn't matter. Ethan went silent, and Tony heard street noise, car horns on the other end. Tony, she ran away from the hospital. I just spoke to her mother. They can't find her. I think she's going to Mia. She knows I found out everything, and I don't know what she's capable of. A cold wave of fear swept over Tony. He looked at the printout on the table, at the name Jessica Carter, at the address listed in the signature. Give me Jessica's address, he said quickly. Right now, we need to get there before she does. Tony sped through the night city, checking his navigator. Jessica's address glowed on the screen like the last beacon of hope. He tried calling Ethan, but Ethan didn't pick up. He only sent a text, already on my way there. Call the police. When Tony turned onto the right street, he saw Ethan's familiar car parked ahead with its headlights off. Ethan sat behind the wheel, his face gray and haggard in the light of a street lamp. Is she here? Tony breathed, running up to the car. Her car isn't here. Ethan pointed to the dark house across the street. But I saw a light moving behind the curtains. They're home. At that moment, a police patrol pulled onto the street. Detective Rita Graves, a woman with a tired but attentive gaze, listened to their rushed story. While she verified the information, Tony noticed movement in Jessica's house. On the second floor, a curtain parted slightly, and a child's face peered out. "Look," he nudged Ethan. Ethan lifted his head. His breath caught. The girl with dark hair looked straight at him. Only for a few seconds, then she disappeared, but Ethan couldn't look away from the window. She has my eyes," he whispered. Rita Graves interrupted. "We checked Mrs. Carter and her daughter are home, but your fiancée is nowhere to be found. We contacted her parents. They don't know where she is." Suddenly, Ethan's phone vibrated. Unknown number. With a trembling hand, he brought the phone to his ear. "Ethan." Claire's voice sounded strange. Too high, too tense. "I know where you are, and I know why you're there. Did you think I'd let you trade our love for some random mistake? Claire, where are you?" His voice broke. "Don't do anything foolish." She laughed hysterically. "I was just protecting our family, our perfect life, and you ruined everything. If I can't have you, then she won't have you." Ever a click in the phone, Ethan went pale. "She's close. She's watching us." Rita Graves immediately gave orders over the radio. 2 more patrol cars began canvassing the area. Tony pulled Ethan aside. "Listen, you need to talk to Jessica. Explain everything. While we look for Claire." Ethan nodded slowly. Stepping on the asphalt wet with nighttime dew, he approached the house. His hand trembled as he pressed the doorbell. Jessica opened the door. Behind her stood a small figure. Mia pressed close to her mother. Ethan's voice betrayed him with a quiver. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know anything." Jessica looked at him with cold caution. 2 years, Ethan. 2 years my daughter cried at night, thinking her father hated her." At that moment, screeching brakes sounded. Everyone turned. On the other side of the street, Claire's car came to an abrupt stop. She jumped out, disheveled, in a wrinkled wedding dress, wildfire in her eyes. "There he is," she shouted, pointing at Ethan. "My fiancé, who abandoned me for some slut and her kid." The police officers rushed toward her, but Claire was faster. She dashed across the street straight at them. "Did you think I'd let you destroy my life?" she screamed at Jessica. "I spent 10 years building a life with Ethan, and you and your random mistake." Ethan stepped forward, shielding Jessica and Mia. "Enough, Claire, it's over." But she didn't listen. Her eyes were full of hatred. Suddenly her hand jerked, and in the street lamp light, a small knife gleamed, the very same one they used to cut the wedding cake. "If not me, then no one," she hissed. Everything happened in seconds. The police shouted, "Stop." Ethan instinctively pushed Jessica and Mia back, stepping into Claire's path. A dull sound, a scream, blood on his white shirt. When the police handcuffed Claire, Ethan lay on the asphalt. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was the frightened face of his daughter watching him from the doorway. Hospital. Light, the smell of antiseptic. Ethan opened his eyes. Tony and Detective Rita Graves leaned over him. "The wound isn't serious," Tony said immediately. "Lucky." "Claire," Ethan croaked. "In custody," the detective replied. "This time for a long time. Attempted assault, violation of conditions. She's facing trial." The hospital room door opened slightly. Jessica stood in the doorway, and behind her, Mia. We brought this for you." Jessica held out a small drawing. It showed a family, a man, a woman, and a girl holding hands. Ethan took the drawing with a trembling hand. Tears filled his eyes. "I'm sorry," he managed to whisper, looking at his daughter. "I am so very sorry." Mia silently stared at him for a few seconds, then slowly approached the bed and gently placed her small hand on his bandaged one. "Don't die," she whispered softly. At that moment, Ethan understood. His life was only beginning. The real life. Not a perfect fairy tale, but a hard, honest, and true one. And it was worth fighting for.